Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby.
Hello and welcome to Movies vs. Capitalism, an anti-capitalist movie podcast. I'm Frank.
And I'm Rivka.
And we got a couple of things we want to talk about here at the top, so we're going to jump right into them because a lot
is happening.
One of them just happened yesterday and is very much in the news. And then the other thing is something happening that we caught and we were like, we got to talk about that. But first we're going to talk about space, the final frontier.
Women are going there. Girl bossing it up.
Have you heard women have gone to space?
Women are going to space. And I was about to jump in with the assumption that everyone knows what the fuck we're talking about. But I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I was like, this isn't real. This is like, this is total satire. And this is why it's really hard to fucking write satire for 2025, because you can't fucking beat this shit. Like, you can't.
You really can't.
Every day, it's so fucking hard to like fact check because you're just like, this is not The Onion. The Onion should retire. Like, it's just too much. So what we're talking about is a crew of ladies.
A crew of girl bosses.
Including the one and only Katy Perry.
Katy Perry, pop superstar, Gayle King, and a few others. And Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, I'm pretty sure they're his girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez, along with a few other women, were, I believe, the second crew for a Blue Origin space flight. The first one, it was Jeff Bezos' a few years ago. Remember when he went into orbit in that fucking dick-shaped spaceship, rocket ship. But this was the first all-female crew going to space for a hot second. They didn't even do anything. They just like go into space and then come back down. It's like, wow, what a fucking waste of time and energy. And I'm like, the CO2 that they're burning into the world, whatever.
To be fair, Frank, just as Katy Perry pointed out, how could she understand love without having spent millions of dollars? That could, I think, like $28 million it was to go out in space to see the planet, to come back, because that's how lacking, I guess, in fucking humanity and love this fucking bitch is. Like, what the flying fuck? Could you even like? And so she came off and like kisses the ground. I think the other funny thing that I'm like, you can't make this shit up. Like, Gayle King was like, and when we were begging Katy the whole time to like sing. And she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't sing for us. And then as soon as we're coming down, she starts singing, "What a Wonderful World." And I was like, you get writers, pens down. AI can't make it up. Like,
can't.
It's to it. And then she kisses the ground when she comes out. $28 million fucking dollars. And most people are fucking pissed and furious about. Like, I don't think anyone's buying this as like even on the most like right wing or like liberal kind of media reports. Like, if you look at the comment section, everyone's like disgusted. Like, it is so fucking disgusting.
Well, then also Katy Perry came down and said,
that she needed, we needed to protect Mother. Something about like needing to protect Mother, and that's what she saw when she was up there. She needed to go to see, because unlike the rest of normal humans, she's so fucking desensitized from humanity that she
so alienated by her class position that to go to space and then to come back down is her way to reconnect to the Earth and what the Earth has given us. And to fucking literally cosplay as an astronaut and then come down here and wax philosophical about how we need to take care of the Earth while you just wasted all of this money to burn all of this fuel that goes into the atmosphere for this commercial space flight that has no scientific merit, no benefit to humanity in any way, is just a vain exploration of your own fucking ego and the amount of wealth that you've accumulated to come down and then be like, it's all about Mother Earth, is like, yeah, you're right. Like, AI couldn't write this shit. This is such next level fucking satire. The level of cognitive dissonance and disconnection these fucking people have from the lived experience. Like, put that money anywhere else. Anywhere else, Katy Perry. You want to help Mother Earth? Like, do something. Like, donate. Give it to a mutual aid organization.
Slow Factory had like a good infographic on like all the things that could be done, like how many lives could be changed.
Sure.
You care about women, like just so much that can be done with that. It is just.
Or if you're interested in science, like put it towards some scientific research that's actually, trying to make the world a better place or a healthier place or a less toxic place or something. Did you see that supermodel Emily Ratajkowski?
Yes.
Came out and was like, fuck Katy Perry, that dumbass. How fucking dare you come down here and say Mother Earth after blowing all this money on Jeff Bezos. She's like, Jeff Bezos's company? That piece of shit? One of the guys who's one of the most responsible for destroying the planet? You're going to come down here and then say that you care about planet Earth? Fuck you guys. I was like, okay. Emily Ratajkowski? Based? Had no idea. Get it.
Yeah. I think her politics go in and out, but it's
sure.
I mean, just where you're like, it's such a big, it's so, why is not everybody saying that? I'm very, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, I know normal people are like on there, but it just feels like it's just such a fucking slap in the face. But this is really scary, the level of alienation on that sense that we're just like, we can't even. It's like, I was going to say can't even touch grass on like that kind of reality. You know what I mean? I said touch grass and I immediately saw her kissing the earth when she came down. Mm-hmm. But like, it just feels it's so delusional. And yet I guess I'm thinking about Bernie and AOC having these, like, we know the masses are aware of how delusional it is and just like how important it is and how disappointing it is to not see them give people a real call to action. It's such an opportunity. And I don't necessarily even know what that call to action would be. I know it's not going back to the Democratic Party. You know, I know it's not going to be Cory fucking Booker, but like even just saying like naming the names. I mean, Bernie they go in and out, but just like giving beyond like oligarchy at this point feels safe.
Sure.
I'm just like, I guess I'm thinking about like, are people going to make the connection between like Oprah being like like one of the queen funders of the DNC on that stage and Gail, her best friend, going to space and Katie, like, are people going to make those connections or are they just going to like let it go? Like,
it's not organizing. It's not building a movement. It is just like naming things, but also like you're saying, like tamely naming things, like safely naming things.
It feels like they're putting it so close. And I guess this is kind of leads us to like what we want to talk about next, but like how close it would be to connect the dots. Like, those like games where you remember those drawing games where you used to have to like to go from line to line to like create the figure. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're there, and I'm like, can we just you bring us right here? Like, can we just fucking tie it together?
Yeah, I mean, in the before we go on to our last topic, like in the Bernie and AOC thing, it's like for them specifically, it's the Democratic Party. Like they need to be naming that as another. The other half of like the ruling class's political representation. But they're not going to name like
Nancy Pelosi's connection to the oligarchy. They're not naming those things because they still have this tie. And until you do that, it's like,
and because they're too afraid to lose their own positions. Like that's also so much of what like they know that people want them to break from the party. They know that they want like that people want them to do more and to be like, fuck this party, we're starting our own thing, everyone leave, come over here. But they are too afraid of losing their own political status and their positions within this party. And they've made the calibration, the decision that like, oh, I can still work within the party. I can still gotta kind of make it work towards our ends and what we want. And it's like, we're so far past that.
And I think the good faith version maybe is that, I mean, I think that's true. And I think there's also like, I think to really be a leader in that sense and to be a movement leader, you have to have such deep faith in the political horizon you see. And I think there's such cynicism. I don't know if that would change with Bernie. I don't know if that could change with AOC, but like, I think there's such a deep sort of lack of belief in actually like change. real change that they'll say. Like, I think something, because you have to have that belief to break and take that step. And I think there's like just a deep kind of lack of belief. Like fear is also, I guess, lack of belief. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe it's lack of belief. I think it's more like fear-based and will, and like the will to do it and the will to put yourself like to really go against the machine, to like actually have like Bernie barely was against the machine in like running within the Democratic primary. He's still playing within the rules of the machine and went up against it. But like now, and that, and that was brutal for him. Like just even playing within the machine for Bernie and running in the Democratic primary ended in 2 devastating losses in 2016 and 2020. Can you imagine what it would be like to actually then go outside of the machine and then try to break the machine from the outside? That's the will to do that for him at that age.
And the thing that's mind-boggling is like the thing that they would scare us about the whole time still happened. We still had Trump twice.
Yep, that's
so
yes,
like,
exactly.
Why not take that leap? So it kind of connects to the next thing in like a silly way. But we were talking about the new Seth Rogen show, The Studio.
We were.
And I don't know if you're not watching it. Watch. I mean, we both think it's really good and fun.
I'm loving it. I think,
although I feel like
hilarious.
Each episode is getting a little less great for me. Like to each episode, I'm slightly feeling like it's a less striking satire and getting a little bit more sort of like inside baseball empathetic to the character Seth Rogen is playing, which is the head of a studio.
Sure. Well, this last one was very much like a genre piece. It was very much like we're doing a noir episode, it's But even
the one before, and I think you hear this, so we were talking about his just different interviews that Seth Rogen has been having about the show, because the show is very much talking about literally like the system of Hollywood, and in the way that Seth Rogen's been talking about it, art and commerce, and how difficult it is, how like it's nearly impossible to make anything artistic because of the art versus commerce, and how I'm kind of saying it as he's saying it, which is like because of because the way things are set up. I don't even know if he said system, but like the way things are set up in Hollywood. Yeah, definitely. And I sent one of these things to Frank.
Yes, you sent me this interview that he was doing. It was like a panel discussion where he said this.
And it's written from the perspective of people who, like, we can't deny that, like, our dreams have come true because of this industry in many ways. But it's also like so frustrating and aggravating, and you're constantly seeing people make choices that are confounding and contrary to their own love of film. That was a real revelation that we had, was that a lot of these people who make movies that work at studios themselves love film, but are constantly making choices that make it worse. And that actually was said to us when we were very young. We were in a meeting getting notes from a studio executive, Steve Asbell. He runs Fox now. And he looked at me and Evan and said, I got into this because I love movies, and now it's my job to ruin them. And we never forgot it.
And then I think I said to you, like, I said something, but it was funny because you were like, you responded, and I was like, LOL. And you're like,
oh, he did everything except say the thing. And I was like, wait, what thing didn't he say?
Right. And I was like, LOL.
And I was like, no, LOL, but for real, like, what thing didn't he say? Turns out he didn't say capitalism.
Yeah, I was like, like capitalism, like
that thing that we regularly talk about. Yeah,
just like it, and it again back to like this the figure drawing of like connecting the dots, and we're so close. I feel like there's so much media that is like so close, and I understand it's not even in their interest to connect the dots, right? Like, because he's making this show inside of the system that he's talking about. Like you can't, can you change it from inside? I don't not without like really saying it, but like, I think in this and like just hearing him kind of be like, and I get it, like we can empathize with like, yes, I think there probably are a lot of studio heads who are big fans of art and got into it like this character because they love movies, and because of this quote unquote system, they end up being the enemy and having to literally destroy the things they love. But like, what use is any of that conversation to us if you don't name the system?
Yes. I think why I didn't pick up on what you were saying is because like we're like, this tension, and like he boils it down to like art and commerce. And I think we would go a step further and say it's the conflict between creative labor and the profit motive and the ownership class of these studios, of these media conglomerates and these shareholders, which like have no fucking interest in creativity or the creative labor that goes into creating the things. They just are like, just show me my bottom line. I don't give a fuck. But you're right. Like, because we are talking about this so regularly, I'm like, oh, he's hinting at the thing, he's getting at the thing. But I wasn't realizing. I was like, oh yeah, that's clear what he's saying. But you're right, it's not clear because he's just sort of like throwing his hands up and he's like, I guess this is just the way things are in Hollywood, you know? Like, this is the problem, time in memoriam. This is how it's got to be. It's always this way. And you're right, he doesn't actually.
And I feel bad for these guys, which,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine to have empathy, and you see that in this case, and you're like, everyone, yes, plays a part and a role in this system. But how does that help us change it? Like, you know, I'm just like, oh, do you care to change it, or do you really feel like, and that is so cynical and such a fucking, like, we can't, I'm just like, so fucking depressing. But not depressing for him, because he is in the class where he can make a show like this. You know, you're like, you're making the show. Like, you're fine. Your class is fine. It's almost like hard to hear it from that perspective, because you're like, so you're just looking down at everyone else like, sorry. Like, you know.
Yeah, real tough position that these studio heads
I mean, if
put
Scorsese
into.
can't do it, sorry. Like, which to me, I'm just like, okay, the cynicism is just in with all of what's happening. It's the satire that's just cynicism that doesn't give us any kind of like hope or suggestion of like, what is the alternative, or like, why is Seth Rogen not even talking about, I mean, you know, and we have critique for when Sean Baker sort of talks about things without, you know, talks about wanting to have more indie film without acknowledging like, dude, your indie film that's here is because of the form that it's structured in, right? Like, it wasn't an indie project to get you to the fucking Oscars. Let's be real, and let's name that too.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why are you not also then, like, God, it just seems shocking to me that people think it's enough. Like, it's enough to just sort of show it. Like, that's doing something. Like, don't you want to like change it, dude?
I'm trying to think in real time, like what could what could the show be doing or saying that would underscore the points that like we would want made more? For me, I would want to hear and see more about how, you know, this is not just a matter of like commerce. This is a matter of like ownership. Who actually owns these companies? Who owns the capital? Who are the shareholders? What are their interests, and how are they directly at odds with the people who actually put in the creative labor to create these things? I would also want to see.
Yep.
I would also want to see how this isn't like a conflict or a tension that is unique to Hollywood. This is a tension and a conflict that exists within every major capitalist industry. Like, the ownership shareholder class is always going to want to make the choices that are the most destructive, that are the most volatile, that harm people, that harm the environment, if it means that their bottom line and their margins are going to go up. And I want to see how this isn't just a Hollywood thing. This is across industry, and it is because of the system in place and the way that capitalism works that these conflicts and tensions are always going to arise, because that is how the system works, and that is how the system is built. And it's not a bug, it's not a flaw, it's a feature. It's a feature of how the capitalist enterprise is structured.
Yeah. And it might be that he just doesn't have that analysis. Like, he's just not there.
Definitely not. He has no fucking idea. He's been fucking rich since he was a teenager.
I mean, he's heard it and ignored it. I mean, it just like, again, you're so close. Like, someone's around. I mean, it's not that hard to see, especially when you're making all the connective tissue. So yeah, like, I don't think it's that he doesn't know. I think it's just that to risk what he would have to risk to actually say something,
sure,
is not it's not for the faint of heart. And yet, like, it's becoming more and more like everybody needs to then it's performative. So I just felt like, I'm like, this whole show felt super performative and super safe, which I understand inside the form that it is, what it's on HBO. Like, it's like, of course, you know,
Yeah.
Of course he has to go on there and say, no, this is sort of actually, like, I understand it's not the studio head's fault. It's this vague invisible hand that we're not going to talk about, this vague force that we can never come across. So everybody just like shut up and like it.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating. It's actually kind of like, it was kind of devastating. It was kind of like depressing as fuck. I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be a show that was like, yeah, we're just in a place where you're like, naming it is not enough. Everybody knows. We all know. But if you just tell us time and time again, this is your reality, you're only serving capital. And you're only making people want to like fucking find ways to just like be apathetic or just survive it. That is not rebel.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has to keep everyone happy. You know, Seth Rogen wants to continue working in Hollywood, so he has to. So he can only make a show that is critical to a point, and that you're saying has infinite empathy for the studio head, for the executive characters who are put in this conflictive place and who have to make these decisions. The closest he gets is to like the Bryan Cranston character, who was, I guess, like the owner or the CEO of the parent company, who was like clearly this like gross, like rank capitalist monster who cares nothing about art. But that's like the closest, and and he gets to remove it from like Hollywood itself and be like, oh, well, there's this guy over here who's giving the directives and he sucks, but like now I'm in this shitty position. But you're right. It's just like he can only be critical to a point because he wants to keep working. He wants to maintain his class position, and he wants everyone to still like him at the end of the day.
Yeah. Still a fun show.
Still very funny. I get a lot of really hard lulls
there's
out of
some
it.
good
And
lulls
the
out of it.
filmmaking is really, really good.
Yeah, just hoping we can get some dots connected soon because we're getting pretty fucked over with fascism.
Do you know what I thought was a much better satire about the film and TV industry? And we talked about it briefly once, but was The Franchise, which was like Armando Iannucci produced it, but it was about like basically the film production of a Marvel movie, which I thought had much more of like an acidic take on Hollywood and the creative process and how the influence of capital and the capitalist class really fucks with the people who are actually making art. I thought was much better. If you want to check, at least as a satire, I thought it was much better.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, we actually went on longer than I thought we were.
Yes.
So
Sorry about that, y'all. Let's get right to it.
We're going to get to our episode where, our audience, you're going to get to meet the third member of the MVC team, John Patrick. So let's get to that right now. But before we do, we just want to remind you that we don't sell ads on this show. We rely on community support. So if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon.
That's right. For $5 a month, you get access to new bonus episodes, our entire back catalog. We just did a really fun Patreon episode on Jumanji. So
that was a good one.
You would get to listen to that. We deep dived. Our Patreon link is in the episode description in your podcast player or at mvcpod.com.
Also, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your podcast player so you don't miss new episodes and so that, it boosts the fucking algorithm and that other people can find it. It is actually very helpful. So if you can take the time and do that, we would appreciate it.
And a reminder that we donate our ad space. So if you're part of a leftist or progressive organization and you would like to run an ad on this program, please email us at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with our conversation about Galaxy Quest with John Patrick.
Hey everyone, we've got a great organization we want to tell you about called Theater Workers for a Ceasefire. They organize US-based theater workers in solidarity with the people of Palestine. The easiest campaign to plug into is the PAC-B working group.
Rivka, what is PAC-B?
Great question, Frank. It stands for the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel. It's basically the cultural wing of the BDS movement. Since 2004, it has organized with partners globally to end all forms of cultural and academic complicity with apartheid Israel as the most meaningful form of pressure to compel it to comply with international law.
The working group meets every other week, and the goal is to enlist theatrical organizations to take up PAC-B's guidelines for divestment from Israel's genocide and occupation. It's open to anyone who lives in the US and works in theater.
Theater Workers for a Ceasefire also hosts events in New York like teach-ins and organizes contingents for marches and protests.
You can learn more, join the group, or support their work at tw4c.com. Theater Workers for Ceasefire, tw4c.com, or find them on Instagram at Theater Workers for Ceasefire.
Love you, comrades. Now back to the show.
Today, we are so thrilled to be joined by John Patrick. John is a science educator and now a podcast editor based in Boise, Idaho. John's career has ranged from teaching high school, developing climate change curriculum, and coaching teachers on implementing new science content in their classrooms. When he isn't editing this fantastic pod, you can find him playing in the mountains either on skis, a mountain bike, or with a backpack. And if it wasn't already clear from that bio, John is the editor for this very podcast, Movies versus Capitalism. John, thank you so much for being here.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, thanks, Frank and Rivka. This is awesome. I'm so happy you guys asked me on the pod, and I'm so excited to dive into this movie today. It's been really fun to join the team and work on this awesome show. I really love what we do here. I was a listener for a while before I hopped on and started editing, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, we say it a lot. I hope we say it enough, but like, we're so fucking grateful that you joined us. It's made a world of difference. Yeah, and you've done a great job, and we really just get to shine as talent.
We finally get to assume our natural roles as just the talent.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about that a lot watching this movie. Like, yes.
There are some themes there that we can hit on. Yeah.
Oh, we will. We will. No, but truly, John, to echo Riv, it's been such a joy to have you join the MVC team, to get to know you, to help us out with this project. You know, some of us are expecting children here, so this has been a huge help here.
You said that, and it took me a moment to be like, yeah, what? Who?
Who has news to share?
I thought that was going to get a laugh or something, but
it got a look of confusion for me.
It got a look of confusion.
I'm so who? Yep. That's me. And John, no joke about the mountains, because you're like, I'm headed back from... You were skiing just now, or doing something in the snow? Yeah,
I was skiing this morning up at, we have an awesome nonprofit ski hill outside of Boise, which is really fun. It's like 35, 40 minutes away. So I was up there playing in some fresh snow.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah,
it's been pretty fun. So that's kind of like my therapy a little bit, is getting out in the snow.
This isn't just the East Coast elite on this podcast making this happen.
Certainly not. And John, I don't know if we've actually ever talked about this, but as you mentioned, like, you grew up in the South. We were just talking a little bit off mic. You grew up in the Atlanta area, lived in Texas for a while. I'm curious, how did you develop like a more leftist politics? I don't know if we've ever had this discussion.
Wow. Yeah. No, we haven't. I'm really glad you asked. I mean, I frankly grew up pretty conservative, because I grew up in the suburbs, upper middle class, very fortunate to have a very privileged upbringing. I grew up fairly conservative. And then when I went off to college, I guess it's that classic story of like, I went off to college and got this like leftist brainwashing, education or whatever that you always hear about. But especially once I started studying science education over at the University of Georgia, I ended up in a lot of spaces that like I had never been in before. And, working in schools in Athens, Georgia, where I went to school, and an after school program there. And then also like the school that I taught at in Houston when I moved out there, like there were a lot of times during that experience where I was, the first time in my entire life where I had been like in the minority, so to speak, like as a white man. And that was like really, really important for me, just to see, parts of the world that I had never really been exposed to, and learn from other people from like, really different backgrounds. And I would say like the most like radicalizing moment for me was Hurricane Harvey in 2017 in Houston, which was a terrible, terrible storm. And the community that I worked at in Northeast Houston was hit very, very hard by this storm. I mean, I had students they were on a Texaco station for gas station for 24 hours before someone from the Cajun Navy in Louisiana came by in their airboat, or like we floated our little, one of my students was telling me, we floated my 3-year-old brother out of our house on the refrigerator door, and the water was like up to our necks,
Jesus.
And then at the same time, like I was very fortunate in the part of town I lived in that I was high and dry and I had power. But like, I remember this moment of like on the news, right? My coworkers and I were all trying to call our students, figure out if everyone's safe, who needs help, who needs rescuing, where people are. And then on the news, it is this shot from West Houston, which is like the more gentrified upper middle class. Like, this is the nice part of town, and the news is over there, and this lady's walking out of her house in ankle deep water, and that's where like the news is covering. It was a really big like wake up for me as far as just like the inequities and the environmental racism that's baked into, especially in a place like Houston, the east side of town where our school was. That's where all the oil refineries are. We lost a whole week of school one time because of a chemical fire that like the air wasn't safe to breathe. And like, these are problems that
oh my God,
my students were facing that other parts of the city didn't really experience. And so it was a really big like wake up call for me as far as the climate specifically, because I was teaching AP environmental science at the time. So this was my everyday, right? Was teaching about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a really big wake up call. It's just like how unequal the impacts of this are. And, so from there, the more I learned about climate and the more I went into that, like dove into learning about that subject and teaching about it, I started to realize like a lot of like, it really is under the surface. It is capitalism that is driving all of this. And I would say like the big moment where I went from like, I am, a progressive liberal to like, oh, now I'm like full on anti-capitalist was definitely when I read, I know it's been mentioned on the show before, but Jason Hickel's book, Less is More, How Degrowth will Save the World. And he lays out this just really plain, really well, like argued case that like, we live in a finite world. We only have one planet. We have only so many resources at our disposal. And capitalism is a system that is premised on the idea of infinite growth. Like, it has to grow every year. When it doesn't, we call that a recession, which we all know is really bad, right? And so, yeah, it was just like, it just became really clear to me that like, in reading that book, I think like one way I sum it up to people when I'm talking about this is like, capitalism is going to end one way or another, like no doubt in my mind about that. The question is like whether we let it collapse violently and destructively, or whether we can do something to like kind of wrest control back from, this like consumption extractive system that we have, built up. And of course, a lot of what Dr. Hickel talks about in the book is just like the colonial aspect of all of this, and how much like our world and the world that we know in the West and the global North is like the prosperity and stuff that we are so familiar with has really come at the expense of people in the global South, where we have done, all of these crazy, resource extraction, predatory loans through like the IMF that keeps people dependent on, or it keeps countries dependent on like, extracting their natural resources. And so that really put it all together for me. And yeah, that's how I got here.
Damn. Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, I'm glad we waited to ask that question until now. Got it on mic. That was awesome. Also can see why you were probably a great teacher. Still are teacher, but
Thank
I
you.
like that we were talking off camera before about all the things your students might have called you. And I saw Mr. Pat there. I liked it.
Mr. Pat. Shout out to Genesis. She was the one who called me Mr. Pat. I remember very fondly.
That's awesome. I love that. They must have been so lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
And now we have you.
Stuck in the grips of MVC.
And when we talked about having you be a guest on the podcast, we were like, we have to have John on. You have to come on now that you're part of this. And we talked about a few movie options, but one you threw out pretty quickly that I was like, yes, that one. Yep, that's the one we're doing. So today we are talking about Galaxy Quest, released in 1999. Directed by Dean Parasot and written by David Howard and Robert Gordon. This movie stars Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney, she's back again on MVC. She's back. Alan Rickman, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell, Daryl Mitchell, and Enrico Colantoni. This movie was made for $45 million and grossed roughly $90.7 million worldwide. And if you've never seen this movie, we will be spoiling it, but a brief synopsis. When a group of washed-up actors from the canceled 1970s space TV show Galaxy Quest are mistaken for real-life space heroes by an alien race, they're reluctantly recruited to help defeat a dangerous enemy. As they embark on the mission, the actors realize that their fictional roles have unexpectedly prepared them for the real-world adventure, leading them to rediscover their true purpose and become genuine heroes.
That's right. Some historical context. This film was released on December 25th. Big release date, 1999. Other films that we covered from this year include Office Space, The Matrix, and Cradle Will Rock.
1999 is one of the all-time movie years of all time. We could go down the list, but yeah.
Yeah. They were like, just in case we all die, let's like give it our best.
Let's get them all out.
Other things you may remember from this time. Bill Clinton, our president, was recently acquitted from his impeachment trial. You know, the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal. The Columbine High School shooting did take place in Littleton, Colorado. The Recording Industry Association of America was filing a lawsuit against Napster. Remember Napster? Alleging copyright alleging copyright infringement. If you don't remember Napster, Additionally, in the year 1999, the words adorkable, bling, blog, carbon footprint, clickbait, e-reader, e-waste, hoarding disorder, texting, and vape all appeared in print for the first time.
We had vape in 1999, huh? I did not know
Fascinating. Yeah, I wonder.
They were laying the seeds early. They were like, we gotta get this going.
Also, of course, I had to look this up. Eggs cost 98 cents a dozen.
Jeez Louise.
And as the world prepared, as we've alluded to already, the world was preparing for the Y2K bug to potentially bring down the global internet and telecommunication systems. Do you both remember where you were for that and like what your mental state was?
I do. I was at home with my grandma. It was just the two of us. Maybe my brother, but like my grandma fell asleep, and I remember telling her, I'd be like, Grandma, at midnight some shit could go real fucking bad. It could go real. The whole world could fall apart at midnight, Grandma, just so you know. My grandma Dolly. And she was like, okay, Frank. And she was asleep, and I was just sitting there watching the ball drop and just like looking at her asleep on the couch, and then nothing happened. And I was like, okay, I guess I can let her sleep.
Oh my God, that's an image. Yeah. What about you, John?
I think if I'm remembering correctly, my parents had a New Year's Eve party at our house on Y2K, like on that December 31st. And they didn't do that a lot. So that just stands out. I don't really remember like thinking about Y2K. I mean, I was 8 at the time. But I do vividly remember my brother, Steven, and we spent the entire party while the adults were upstairs doing their stuff. We were in the basement playing Spyro, the second Spyro game on the PlayStation, and I think we beat it that night. Yeah. And it was so that was a really fun New Year's Eve memory.
What was yours, Riv?
I was, as those who know me could imagine, pretty deep in the conspiracy theory. So I was prepping. I was ready. I was pretty excited for like Times Square to go dark. I was just like ready. I was with a friend. I remember being with a friend, but I remember getting everyone like ready to go, hyped up. Like everyone's just like, shut up about this. And then, the big letdown.
You had like you were like telling everyone to pack their go bags. Like, make sure you have bottled water, canned food.
Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm. You were a Y2K accelerationist, is what we're saying.
Exactly.
So, John, you know this. First question we ask our guest: why did you choose this movie to talk about on this podcast?
I chose this movie. I think number one, it's just one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so good. I've seen it so many times. And when I was thinking about like coming on the show, I've never guested on a podcast before. This is a first for me. So I was like, what subject can I talk about like forever? And it's Star Trek. I'm a big Trekkie.
Oh, okay.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I have lots of Trekkie bits to add into this discussion. And this, quite frankly, is one of the best Star Trek movies that was ever made, in my opinion. So very highly regarded among the fans. And it's just super fun. And I thought it'd be a fun, like we could get into a lot of fun stuff just about like the politics of Star Trek too, because I think there's some interesting things in this movie that kind of hint at that. And then also I'm super excited to talk about it with y'all because of the whole like actor angle and just to see what y'all's reaction was to all the different like bits that allude to, the career of an actor in this movie too.
Oh, definitely.
I just laughed my ass off so hard when I was rewatching it. Yeah, it's great. It's going to be fun.
Same, dude. Yes, this is also one of my this is like a top 10, top 20 favorite movie for me. I've also seen this movie a bajillion times. It is so fucking funny. It is a perfect movie. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. So I just want to start off by reading a quote from playwright David Mamet.
Whoa.
Who, in his book,
Bring in the theater.
award-winning playwright David Mamet, from his book Bambi versus Godzilla. He's talking about perfect movies. He says, quote, The Godfather, A Place in the Sun, Dodsworth, Galaxy Quest. These are perfect films. They start with a simple premise and proceed logically and inevitably toward a conclusion both surprising and inevitable. So just wanted to throw that in there at the top. Riv, what about you? I have a sneaking suspicion that this might be the first time you've seen Galaxy Quest.
No, I've seen Galaxy Quest for sure. This was in the zeitgeist for me. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised because I'm like, I'm not a Mamet gal. So I was like, I'm not surprised. I like, okay, dude, like, yep, got it. You think that's a perfect movie. But I did, but I totally enjoy it. I don't know if I would be like, that is a perfect movie, nor would I say that necessarily about Godfather, but that's another thing. So I don't know that I was like surprised with, like I thought it's a fine movie, but it's fun as fuck. And there is so much to talk about here. And it was just so nostalgic. There was another big alien movie at the time too, that had a very similar vibe. I feel like this was also
like an alien comedy.
Yeah.
I think Mars Attacks.
Thank you. Yeah. Mars Attacks. So I guess if like this is if this is like The Bug's Life and Mars Attacks was ants,
Mm-hmm.
I think I was a Mars Attacks. I was more Mars Attacks. And it might have just been right. I just remember seeing Mars, but like there was something about this. Yeah. The alien stuff that happened at this time that probably just like set me off on like a, big fan of aliens. Sightings in the sky. Love it all. But I'm so happy that you are a Trekkie, because I will say one of the things I do want to do, and I don't know how or when, because it also feels like not fun, is get into Star Trek.
Why?
Because I hear it's got such great politics.
No, I was going to ask why you want to do it, but it also sounds not fun. Just because of the politics?
No, the politics parts, it just doesn't, it's just, I when you're like, what, I don't know, it's not like a world that I look at and I'm like, that's going to be fun to binge for me.
Sure.
I'm like,
sure.
So it feels like it's going to be work, but maybe I'll be surprised.
They will be work at times, though, and it's actually funny because this was alluded to in the movie at one point by Sigourney Weaver's character. There are a lot of really bad episodes of Star Trek, like famously the first couple seasons of The Next Generation, the Deep Space Nine. Like the first 2 seasons were terrible and like really corny. There's actually a phrase in the Trek world of like a show growing its beard. So if you remember Jonathan Frakes' character, Will Riker in Next Generation, he was clean shaven for the first two seasons of the show, and they were just bad. They were poorly written. They just weren't enjoyable. And then he came back in season 3 with a beard, and the show took off and got really good. So so you kind of have to stick around for the show to grow its beard.
That's amazing.
But there's that scene at the end of the movie when they're going through the big chomper things that are about to crush them, and Sigourney Weaver's like, what the hell is going? She's so confused, and I know Tim Allen's character's like, it was in the show, and she goes, this episode was poorly written, and so it's a really funny callback to some of that, because there's some rough stuff in there that you got to kind of push through.
So I know we're talking about Galaxy Quest, but can you give a brief summarized overview of why people say the politics of Star Trek is so great?
So, I mean, Gene Roddenberry, in his original vision for the show, back in the 60s, he had this concept that IDIC, or IDIC, which stood for Infinite Diversity and Infinite Combinations, which was sort of his ultimate, vision for the universe of Star Trek. And the show was pretty revolutionary at the time for the representation it had. I mean, we had George Takei was on there. I'm totally blanking on his name, but there was a Russian guy playing Chekhov during the middle of the Cold War. Of course, Nichelle Nichols as Lieutenant Uhura was huge as a Black woman on TV at that time. There's a quote, I won't say famous, but I know it well, from Whoopi Goldberg, who played Guinan in The Next Generation, where when she was a kid and she saw Nichelle Nichols on TV for the first time, she ran to her mom and was like, Mama, there's a Black woman on TV and she ain't no maid. And it was just this, this really cool, representation that a lot of people didn't see.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, obviously. It's, still the 60s, but, And then another moment I love too that was really, really cool from the original series was Martin Luther King Jr. was a huge Trek fan, and Nichelle Nichols was like a stage actor professionally, is what she was, like really known for, I think, before she got the role on Star Trek. And she was considering leaving the show because she just like didn't feel it was serious enough and like wanted to go on to pursue like other things in her acting career. And there was an event at that Dr. King was at and that she was at, and I guess he had caught wind of this, and he literally told her, like, you need to stay on the show. Like your representation is so important.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, you kind of
Can't
gotta
say no to that.
You kind of gotta after that. Yeah.
And she didn't, and
Wow.
she went on to do fantastic things, not only as a Star Trek, as an actor in the series, but like Nichelle was really in the 80s. She worked with NASA and was helped recruit women to the agency, which was really cool. Wow. The original space shuttle, the one that they tested in the atmosphere, was the USS Constitution, until a letter writing campaign from Star Trek fans. People wrote in and said, we want you to rename the shuttle the Enterprise, and NASA did it. So, I mean, it just has like its vision for the future is very utopian.
Yeah, I've heard it described as space communism by lefties.
In a lot of ways, there's a lot of that in there, and it's sci-fi in general. Like, why I love sci-fi so much is because it asks like really good introspective, deep questions about like, why are we here? Where are we going? What does all this mean? And I think Star Trek is the best of that in a lot of ways. And there's just some really interesting, Rivka, I'm really excited if you do dive in.
I just remember I had like an uncle godfather figure who really loved it. And whenever we would go, he would always put on this, like, he had like a Star Trek, like a Trekkie pajama set that he would wear to watch Star Trek. So fun. So I'll have to get, I'll let you know, but I will have to get a costume.
Maybe you won't tell us, but there will be signs.
There will be signs. Yeah. But thank you for that. I know we're not talking about Star Trek, but that actually helps. That helps kind of frame the world of Galaxy Quest in a different way. Because I do think you're probably watching it with a totally different lens with the context,
Yeah, absolutely. It is a love letter to Star Trek in a lot of ways. So,
I mean, yeah, and like front and center in this movie is the fandom and like the cult status that the show Galaxy Quest and similar, obviously, Star Trek has taken in popular culture. I mean, with the movie opens and closes at a comic book convention, or at a Galaxy Quest convention. And I love how they incorporate the fans into the narrative of this movie. It's like it's such a comprehensively told story, especially as like a Star Trek send up. Because I feel like any Star Trek fan would watch this movie and be like, oh, hell yeah. Like they got that into, like we're cooking, baby. And then, yes, obviously all of like the stuff with the actors and, the actual, like the fun, just, like David Mamet said, it's a perfect premise. You just get a bunch of,
from a perfect playwright.
I think I need to go do some David Mamet reading after this to get the context here.
You really don't, John.
Okay.
You really don't.
All right. There is, Frank, on that note, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to share this quote while we're talking about like Star Trek in general, and this being like a love letter to Star Trek and fandom. I wanted to share this quote from Patrick Stewart, because who of course played Jean-Luc Picard on The Next Generation. So I thought this just like perfectly encompassed kind of, what you were saying. He said, I had originally not wanted to see Galaxy Quest because I had heard it was making fun of Star Trek. And then Jonathan Frakes, who played Will Riker, who grew his beard, rang me up and said, you must not miss this movie. See it on a Saturday night in a full theater. And I did. And of course, I found it was brilliant. Brilliant. No one laughed louder or longer in the cinema than I did, but the idea that the ship was saved and all of our heroes in that movie were saved simply by the fact that there were fans who did understand the scientific principles on which the ship worked was absolutely wonderful. And it was both funny and also touching that it paid tribute and dedication to these fans.
Yeah.
Aww. Could you imagine being in that theater that night with like the loudest person, like turning around, who the fuck is laughing this loud? And then you're like, holy shit.
There is something about this movie, because I was looking a little bit into the production information, and I was like, who the fuck made this movie? And the director, Dean Parasot, like had done like one other feature beforehand. The story by writer, who also has a screenplay credit, David Howard, this is his first screenplay So you have to imagine that this is like a spec script that he sold. And then Robert Gordon was a slightly more established screenwriter, but had only had like a handful of like not huge screenplays under his belt. So you got to imagine Robert Gordon's brought on to help David Howard finish the screenplay. And then it's just, this is like one of those alchemy movies where they just get everyone at the perfect time. You know, like Tony Shalhoub and Sam Rockwell aren't super famous yet. You can still get Alan Rickman to come in and play like this like funny bit character. Tim Allen is still, you know, whatever.
Well, he's at his prime, really.
He's at his like he's at the most famous of anyone at this moment in 1999. And Enrico Colantoni, who plays Mathazar, is just so fucking funny. It just all falls into place in this with like this fucking razor sharp screenplay, this unbelievable premise, and just everyone coming together at the right time, right place. And it just yielded this movie that has in and of itself like built its own cult following. Like
100%.
Galaxy Quest is a huge, like people love this movie. They've been trying to do a Galaxy Quest TV show reboot. I know Paul Scheer was working on it for a little bit. It might be dead right now, or in development hell. Yeah, we may not need it, but this movie has legs and a tail, and it's just like it's truly like alchemy.
Also, Rainn Wilson's feature film debut in this movie. He was one of the Thermians that came down with them in the original.
I didn't know
crew.
it was his feature debut.
I don't even think I picked up on that. That's so funny.
Yeah, and Missy Pyle, she's fantastic as well.
Yeah, before we leave the topic of the fandom, I thought, thinking about it just through this political lens now, it was interesting seeing, you know, where it kind of like, where it heads to, thinking about that parasocial relationship between, and in this case, it turns out to be like this beautiful parasocial relationship. But I was thinking a lot about like the theme of just taking the messages from media, the propaganda from media, storytelling on TV as literal truth, and where we find ourselves now with a terrible TV villain as president, and just how literal all of it felt. And I didn't know, and just like how literal that like we really, the breeding of, you know, there's like all of there's the dialectic, right, of what kind of can come out of these beautiful parts of having this parasocial relationship and learning from art when done well, and being a Trekkie and that social utopia, but then also like the dark side of having a parasocial relationship with these characters on TV. And I love that it comes out in the aliens just being like so literal, you know, like, and they're so smart and they're not dumb, you know, like they're not. That's what I think is interesting. I mean, some people might see that as a flaw, but like they're clearly like a supremely smart species, right? Like can do some really brilliant shit and yet still take this at face value.
They've invented intergalactic travel. Yeah, they're
and yet like, still are like can't understand that this is lies.
This is a TV show.
That this is a TV show, which is pretty generous. And I think, yeah, because it would have been easy. I don't know. Just as I was reaching, I was just thinking about all those themes and where we sit today and how hard it is sometimes to decipher more and more between reality and media. And just, yeah, that's where my head was at watching it.
There is an interesting thought I had just listening to you to say that, Rivka, like with the fandom and these fans too, like if we think about it and this is not a fully fleshed out thought, but if we like think about it in terms of capitalism too, right? There is like these big conventions and everything. There is like kind of an extractive nature of that as well. Like, you know, people spending all this money to wait in line for an autograph, or like, I'm just interesting thinking about like all the business that is around this fandom too, that has sprung up and like driving these conventions and like all the merchandise that they sell and the toys and all that kind of stuff. So it's
like the Comic-Cons. Yeah. Well, the whole the whole world of consumerism around something that is a story, and like how that can continue on and creates an economy for people like these actors who, like, I know people who like they can create a whole economy, you know, can kind of like their livelihood comes from that because there's this industry gives so little like compensation for the actual creative act. So it is important in that, but like how, yeah. Comic-Cons are their own sort of thing. And
it's the commodification of fandom and finding every possible way to milk a piece of intellectual property for every single dollar that it's worth. I'm also thinking about, like podcast culture. I know we are literally hosting a podcast right now, but you can love a TV show, a movie, and then you can go to like The Ringer and then listen to like 4 different podcasts about White Lotus, and then you can then you can read the recaps and then read the hot takes and then, listen to the official podcast. And I wonder if this has become more prevalent because of either A, the internet, or B, because, I don't know, distraction culture has just become such a huge part of modern life, especially here in America. I feel like it's so people just want to like unplug and not have to think about stuff. And it's so much easier to consume content about the content that you already like than to, I don't know, watch the news or something.
Well, and that's where I was kind of like, that's where I was wanted more context about Star Trek, because I was having trouble as someone who had no context finding like the politic in it. If that, like, I was like, where is the like for Galaxy Quest as the TV show? Like, what is the politic of this show? And I couldn't personally put a finger on it other than sort of like a classic, like, your team on a ship, but like the leaders, it felt very misogynistic, very like, this is the leader of the ship, this dude. And I just felt, and that to me, the replication of that, and like, I guess being like, these aliens are so smart and this is what they are bowing down to. There was like something about like the dumbification of celebrity culture and like that parasocial reality that you see on TV and like the power of like a hero's journey and all of this, but being like, was that really like the best case scenario? Like, did they need to bring couldn't they have probably done a more successsul job without these actors? Like, I was confused.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. So I didn't, and I know it's a satire and I know that, but like that to me was like the lesson. I was just like, there's something here about like the problem with like celebrity culture too, and spectacle, and how that is a huge issue in politics. And these aliens probably had a better politic without the Galaxy Quest crew coming aboard, and that actually made it harder and worse.
It's interesting because I made a note about this of like, this idea of like, what is the point of the Galaxy Quest, or like, is it doing any good, or what is its politic? And like, I mean, Malthazar says when they bring the crew onto the ship, he literally tells them like, your transmission saved our society. And so there was something in this like utopian vision of, and of course I'm thinking about this like, from Star Trek too, but like this, whatever the Galaxy Quest, whatever was going on in that universe that the Thermians thought was real historical documents, clearly like transformed their society and allowed them to like create this incredible technology.
But in the movie, it's never named, right? Like, am I missing something? Because in the movie, I was looking for that too. And I was like, I'm not sure what it is about this.
It's just like they're a family. They rely upon one another. They're all capable and never give up, never surrender. Mm-hmm. I think that's
which to me is a pretty bland liberal, if not right-leaning politic. Like, to me, I'm like, that felt like not a politic.
Yeah, kind of don't tread on me energy.
I was okay. I think like, I was like, okay, I just wanted to check. I'm like, am I fucking missing something like major here?
It is one of those premises that if you start to dig into it a little too much, it kind of falls apart. So you
what
do
the fuck are we here for, Frank? So I do.
Podcast over.
I mean, my question would be like, how did this species that like achieved intergalactic space travel and literally build an Omega-13 device that can reset time, how did they not piece together that this was a fucking TV show? Like, they got other TV shows. They also got Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They also got
but
like
that's
news
the power.
broadcasts.
That's the power of like this propaganda sometimes, I think, like, because we see some brilliant fucking people and you're suddenly like, wait, why are you believe that? You're like, now you're saying some crazy Fox News, like, where the fuck did you get that? You're so, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was the interesting political thread to me, was like, how the power of propaganda in the face of like time travel, science.
Well, because the whole thing turned on that whole point, right? Later in the movie, I'm sure we'll get to it more in detail. But like when Cyrus is telling Jason Nesbitt, like explain to Malthazar like what this actually is. And obviously that was like a huge, like reveal and heartbreaking moment, for Malthazar to be like this whole like curtain got, kind of brought down.
But I guess, they do kind of explain it away in that one moment where we find out. And I guess you could imagine like maybe an advanced alien culture could evolve without the concept of lies or pretend or deception. Because there's that one moment where they're trying to like explain to Malthazar that they're actors and he's not really getting it. And Sigourney Weaver's like, does anyone in your society ever act contrary to reality? And there's like the funny bit where he's like, yes, you were speaking of deception, lies. Yes, this is a concept we have recently learned about at some great cost to us.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's played for a laugh, but like, I guess, I don't know. Is it possible? Let's find out in a few million years if there's any alien civilizations that don't know how to lie.
Even more distressing, does that mean there are no actors? Because we are the grand deceivers. And would I want to live in that evolved world?
A world without theater?
A world without theater? I think not.
On this watch, there's definitely some, I wrote down like TV influencing culture, propaganda. That is all very much a part of this. There is also the aspect, and Riv, you were saying like they probably would have done better if they didn't bring the Galaxy Quest crew onto the ship. Like 1,000,000%. Tim Allen's Jason Nesbitt is responsible for almost the full extermination of this entire people.
Yeah.
Like his first negotiating scene leads to Saris destroying what remains of their home world. Like this white colonizer just comes on and is just like, just like fucking torpedo this guy, whatever, who gives a shit? And then even when he finds out it's real, he's like, I can fucking do this. I could literally be the captain of an intergalactic spaceship and fight a war against an advanced alien race. Like I am that cocky and confident. And he almost is responsible for the extermination of all of the Thermians. It's the level of narcissism is insane. Yeah, and he's never held to account.
Because he was hungover, right? And just, he was like barely even like, they wouldn't even take his sunglasses off. He was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So good. Interesting that like, because we just did Bug's Life, and I'm sure we're going to release Bug's Life before this. And Bug's Life, DreamWorks also. This was also DreamWorks, if I believe, from Wikipedia. And this just reminded me so much of the theater troupe from Bug's Life a little bit. Like, just in the sense of like, actors thinking we have nothing to contribute and then swooping in to destroy and then save the day, like make a mess and clean it up and make everyone happy. But I just thought that, and Bug's Life was 98 and this was 99. So there's...
Yeah, they definitely share some DNA for sure.
Definitely share some DNA.
I did want to add, that was one thing like I said up top, I was really interested in, and maybe we can get into that now. Like I wanted to hear from you guys about just your thoughts about like the actor of it all. Like I think specifically the character that they channeled this the most through was Alan Rickman in my take, like at that scene up top where he's like, I played Richard III, and he's like, now I'm, by Grabthar's hammer, what a savings in front of the mall or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. What did y'all think of that as you were watching that as as people who have worked in acting yourself?
Love it. Love a good. I mean, what actor is not like, I got into this to fucking play the best of the best roles, and like here I am on set it for this commercial, like using my $40,000 a year craft to sell you an air conditioning unit,
Yeah, I love all of the actor stuff. I have a hard time believing that this cast is not sitting very pretty with a lifetime of residuals from this TV show. Although maybe in this world, Galaxy Quest aired at a time before SAG had negotiated really good TV residuals for everybody. Because we do get materially, we get Jason's home, which is like on the top of the Hollywood Hills, like a fucking gorgeous mansion. And then we see Alan Rickman in like his like shitty 1-bedroom apartment in LA somewhere. So there is like, I guess a wealth discrepancy, maybe just from like the gigs that they've worked at. I don't know. But all of the actors, like Alan Rickman in this movie is unbelievable.
So good.
He is so funny. His like under the surface resentment. Sigourney Weaver also just absolutely kills it. Her line that gets me every time when she's like, look, I have one job on this ship. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it. Okay. Like, I love how they call out the fact that her, like, they in a way, in a degree, call out like the inherent misogyny of what her role is on the ship, which is just to repeat the computer. But for me, the MVP is Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell as just like a dude who played a red shirt in an episode who just gets like schlepped along on this thing. And the entire time he's just like, I'm going to die here. Like,
so good.
He's so funny. Rivka, do you know what the red shirt, do you know what that means? I don't want to brush over that.
Is that a Trekkie thing?
Yeah. So I
know that one Trekkie thing.
Yeah. In the original series, the security team would wear red shirts. They had they had their yellow, blue, and red, right? And so like Spock's always in the blue because he's a science officer, but all the security people had red on. And so whenever they would beam down to a planet, like it'd be, Captain Kirk and Mr. Sulu and, Lieutenant Uhura, and then like 3 random guys in red shirts that you just knew were not making it back up to the ship because they were like, and Sam Rockwell's character even says this at one point in the movie. He's like, I'm just a guy that dies, so the situation is serious. And like he, just that extra that's just cannon fodder.
No, his character was great, and what one would, I mean, just thinking back on like what one would do to just get that one extra line or like be a series regular, like when they're just standing in the elevator and Alan Rickman just looks at him like, what? And he's like, I'm just so happy to be here.
I'm just so jazzed to be on the show, man.
Yeah, it's so good. So I thought all the actor critique was great. I will say I was so disappointed by the female characters and Sigourney Weaver's character. I thought it was so one note. And there was so much more. There was like literally the joke you said. I was like, that was the one, to me, that was like the one note. Like it was like the one satire. I could see why Mamet liked this because he's notoriously known for writing misogynistic female characters. Sure. So like it was just, especially like you fucking Sigourney Weaver, like queen of the genre. Like it felt like, God, ugh. It made me, that made my skin crawl, was just how safe it was. They didn't use any of the satire they could have commented on, like how how women were sexualized and used in these shows, and like they never gave her character greater depth or a greater arc. Where like even Sam Rockwell's character got the arc of at least like he had a bigger arc than she did.
You know what, Riv? You're absolutely right about that. And now I look at this movie differently forever. It is an underutilization of Sigourney Weaver as a performer and the character in the movie. And you're right, all the other characters, Tony Shalhoub falls in love. Alan Rickman learns to love the character and the legacy and history that he has created, and Sigourney just gets to fall in love.
She just falls further into her
Tim
stereotype, which is like, if that was supposed to be satire, it didn't. You're falling into the thing that she was supposed to satirize, and it never.
It
never came through. And
there's like a very clear visual representation of that missed opportunity in the fact that like her shirt is just like more progressively ripped throughout the movie, like that. Yeah, like you're so right that they could have done like, it was almost like they satirized every other character, but they just transported hers like 1-to-1.
Yeah, it's like this thing that you see where you're like, you think by just making the racism or the sexism more extreme, that's satire. And you're like, because it's irony. And you're like, no, that's just further sexism and racism. It's not satire. Just doing it bigger doesn't make it satire. You
100%.
have to like write it,
you have to
dude.
Inject some commentary into there.
Yeah.
Subvert it a
like
little
maybe
bit.
give her an arc.
I wonder if there's like a deleted scene on the cutting room floor that's like she gets to have some sort of Ripley moment or something that we didn't see. Like something like that.
Ripley is on your fucking ship. You're never gonna
let her say like, get away from her, you bitch, or something. Come on. Or like she could have saved the day. She could have activated the Omega-13 and been the one that actually like saved everybody as opposed to giving it back to Tim Allen to
Totally.
resume his normal role as the lead and captain of the ship. Yeah.
Would have been more logical too. Like it was on that fell through at the end. I was like, okay, when they were kind of like saving the day and you're like, oh, okay, I'm done. That's where it failed for me. But yeah, that was kind of like the biggest critique. But Tony Shalhoub, man.
God, he's so funny in this movie. It's so funny.
What a fucking actor. But like really, like just the subtlest, like what a brilliant character actor. We was just in Big Night that we watched, but just like thinking about all your like did a character without doing a character. Like every role he plays, you're like, you're a totally new person and you're not playing a character. Even in a satire where like everything is begging you to go big or go home, you won't do it. And the film is better for it.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a brilliant choice that he is underplaying everything while everyone else is freaking out. It's so it's so funny. All his little throwaway lines, just like when he lands in the spaceship for the first time and everyone's just like freaking out because they just got probed by aliens, and he comes in and he's just like, oh, that was a hell of a thing.
He does play, his character's name is
Fred Kwan, I believe.
Fred.
Right. Tech Sergeant Fred Kwan. Yeah.
Tech Sergeant Ched.
That was interesting because I wasn't sure what he was supposed to like racially be. But like also I know Tony Shalhoub has always had this interesting career of like playing the like racially ambiguous, but always playing kind of like these ethnic characters brilliantly, but also like not necessarily always. And I just thought that was interesting noting that, right? Like being like that he could be, but like also, yeah, I just noted it for sure, especially after you said like kind of like the radicalness of Star Trek and like representation. And personally being an actor who was like told the second I got into the industry, oh, like either, yeah, you're ethnically ambiguous. That's going to be great to commodify you with, like great way to like, or change your name because no one's going to know you're Latina and you have to be Latina because that's what's selling now. You know, just like that whole, I was just especially tuned into that having been a commodity like that myself. Just super aware.
For real. I did notice for the first time ever on this watch that in the opening scene, which is an episode of Galaxy Quest, like the two-parter, that his makeup, they have done like some stuff to his eyes to make his eyes appear more, give him more of an Asian look. It's like it's a
which they probably would have done a lot of in the 60s, right? Like that was the
sure.
era of like no one in freaking West Side Story is Latino except I mean 2 or 3 people, but yeah, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe they were trying to like go there and then they didn't fully go, like, because I'm like, if you're going to satirize this, same with like Sigourney, then like go there.
Yeah, like have him be like, I'm just like a guy from the Upper West Side, and they had me play, you know, an Asian character.
Right.
You know?
I play every ethnicity, which is like a thing that's like what the joke about when they're like, you're ethnically ambiguous and you're in a room and you're like, oh, I'm reading for, I'm reading for an Arab role. I'm reading for a Hispanic role. And you're just like, God damn. Like at a certain point, you're like, I really shouldn't be fucking reading for this. This is wild. You just want more opportunities to make money off of me as your actor commodity. And there's so little out there for anyone who is not white that you're like, I'll do it. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Need to make a living.
Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. I had never thought about that angle looking at his character before. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I hadn't either. And that's why Rivka's the best on this podcast.
Why they pay me more than the two of you.
Absolutely.
Just kidding. We're a socialist podcast. We split everything equally.
Yeah. One more thing about Fred that I really love. This is another just like little nod of fan service, which there were so many moments in this movie that were like, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme of him like pointing at the TV, right? Where I was, where like as a Star Trek fan, but yeah, just when he's like down in the engineering room, he's like, hey guys, like there's been a little issue, like I don't remember what he says, but he's like, the quantum flux core. Yeah. And then he starts just going into all this, like the quantum flux core has been like corrupted or whatever it was, right? Like that was a whole thing. And they called it in the Trek scripts, they would just like the writers would write a line for like Geordie LaForge, right? LeVar Burton's character, and just be like, insert random techno babble here. And so it was just fun to be like, oh yeah, he's doing the techno babble thing. Like, what the hell does any of that mean? It just sounds sciencey or whatever. But that was a fun moment. And just the way he delivered it was just like, and then when they fix it, he brings them in like, all right, guys, group hug.
That was right again. This is a really great team.
Yeah.
Like, to get this cast at this time, they're just all operating on such a high level. It's a magic movie, except for our very strong critiques of the misogyny and racism that we alluded to earlier.
And then Tim Allen, just ding for Tim Allen. I think it gets a ding.
Yeah, he has not aged well.
I'm actually I haven't dug too much. I just like know that I think I would assume MAGA.
Yeah, he's a Trump guy, I believe. He's like a Republican. I think he has been for
early
a while.
on. Like, I feel like on the forefront.
Yeah, he was one of the first celebs to come out and be like, I'm actually with all of this. And yeah, I mean, fuck that. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you, I mean, I guess, I don't know. People are complex and contain multitudes, but I was just going to say, I don't know how you are an actor. You spend so much time on TV and film sets, and like, Hollywood is a liberal place, but just like around other actors, and you still maintain this just like shitty reactionary politics. I don't understand how that happens.
This is what, like, when I then I'm like, well, I get it when I see like the shows he's done. And even in this, you're like, I guess that would track for like his character. Definitely Trumper, you know?
Oh, Jason Nesmith? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Jason
like,
Nesmith is absolutely a Trumper. Yeah.
But like, I know what you mean, Frank. It's like when you're like, we're supposed to be, we're artists and like in this space of empathy. Certainly, yeah. I remember like when it was like that, the 2016 Trump years, and how shocking it was when we'd find out like actors that we studied with or went to school with, just like you held it over them more to be like, but we are empathy makers. We understand the human condition. Like, fuck you. You can't. I wanted to like steal their artist card.
It's wild, especially like, I mean, I don't know if Tim Allen went to theater school, but like you're saying, we went to theater school with people who were like, I am a Republican because that's what my parents told me it was what I am. And we're like, dog, like half of your classmates are queer. Like, are you for real? Like, you're gonna tell us that you're maintaining this ideology that wants to, if not like strip the rights away of, maybe fully eradicate like the people that you share space with and like classes with and lunch with, and
for
like
your taxes, for your tax
for
bracket, which you're not even in. Your inherited tax bracket, you fuck. Yeah. We're clearly talking about someone particular. It just got personal for us, but
it's interesting you say that, Frank, because I mean, like, to look at the Jason Nesmith character almost like to ask, you know, as like a proxy for Tim Allen, like, how does he maintain these terrible politics? Like, I mean, I think they kind of show it in the film where he's, you know, he lives in this big house, like way up above everybody else. He's out booking gigs. They mentioned it early on, like, hey, did you hear he did another gig without us? It's like, he's just this like super ambitious, obviously super narcissistic because of what we see, like the way he, you know, carries himself. Yeah. And like, yeah, he's just like, he never, I don't know, maybe like Jason's character, like tasted success and then he just wants it. He can't get enough of it. Like there's that line where he's like, you know, he's talking on stage early on. He's like, the show must go on. And then they already cut his mic off, but he's just like, so I don't know. He got this like tunnel vision of like, hey, it was really fun to get this success. And now I just want to keep this going at all costs at the expense of, you know, my cast, who also was equally as important to getting me to where I am. He doesn't seem to realize that.
Which is why it was so disappointing that he was, in terms of like not the fun of the movie, but like in terms of the politics or where it could have gone, that I was like, he was the hero. And like, it felt so flat of being, I was expecting, because of the Trekkie nature, to be like there to be some kind of socialist utopia even at the end of this, or some lesson, even like Bug's Life, you know, like a lesson for him.
Yeah, the closest we get is when they crash land back at the convention, and does his big bow at the end. He brings the cast up with him.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Bow alongside of him. What a generous man he has now become. Yeah, that's like that is the arc that we are given.
Well, that's like liberal. He went from being like a conservative to like right-leaning liberal.
Yeah.
He's like, this is equality. We can all bow together.
Equal
But
stage
I did
time.
it. I brought you here.
After this watching it through this lens, I was fully like, fuck Jason Nesbitt. This dude almost gets his oldest friends and castmates all killed. He almost gets this entire race of aliens almost exterminated just so that he can like live in the limelight for another like day or so. Fuck this guy. I don't care. I don't care that he saves that he is part of saving everybody at the end. Like this dude should be in jail forever.
This is another random thing that just to another actorism that you were saying, John. The thing I really related to was how, as an actor, because we're so trained so often to just be like, yes, I'll do whatever it is to get the part, sure, because I am continually part of the unemployed and this army, and so I will do whatever I need to do. And so I'm like, including like, I will get on an alien spaceship, probably think you're taking me, probably thinking like, this is just another crazy set, like, because I'm so used to like no rules or regulations. Like, so I really related to that. I've definitely been on sets where you end up somewhere and you're like, this seems like wildly dangerous and probably not okay, but I did sign SAG paperwork, so I'm assuming my union's got me. This has got to be.
Seems like it's on the up and up.
Seems like it's on the up and up, but oh, sure. You're not going to feed me? Okay.
Y'all are getting in a limo is what you're saying. You're getting in the limo if it comes to pick you up.
Oh, John, the amount of things that I did.
Limo. I'm getting in the trash can.
Yeah.
The shit that I did in my early 20s, the calls that I went on, the random lunches that I took with just like random strangers who were like, I could maybe help you out. I don't need to get into it, but definitely like I found myself in some situations in my time in LA where I'm like, oh, I don't feel safe in this place. And I just came here because I thought that maybe this would help advance my career a little bit. So yeah, like that desperation, that army of the unemployed, the hyper competition of Hollywood especially is like, that is very true.
And it continues on no matter what stage of your career, because that's how this industry thrives. Yeah, that's like the role of this kind of commodified actor in this industry. So they got that spot on.
Yeah, just like a couple more things. I know we're getting to the end here, and I want to talk about the end of the movie, but I did just want to note, like, I couldn't do this discussion without just mentioning like the incredible fan service that this movie does. Like, there are just so many moments in the first big one being like the space dock scene where the ship is pulling out of the dock and Tommy like crashes it into the side because he doesn't know how to drive it. But that's
such a funny sequence.
Oh, it's so good. That's like an iconic Star Trek scene where like they loved in the Star Trek movies, they crashed the Enterprise all the time. So there was, some famous scenes of like, here's the fresh Enterprise like rolling out of the space dock. And then, of course, like, how could I forget? We haven't mentioned it yet, but the best Sam Rockwell line in the entire movie, I think, was his line when they're about to go down to the planet for the beryllium sphere.
Yes.
And they open the door and he goes, is there air? You don't know that? This is an alien planet. And like, oh God, dude, it kills me every time. It's so funny.
Every time. It's such genuine panic on his face when he delivers that line. Is there air? You don't know?
And then of course, Fred Kwan, or Shaloub's character, he just gives it two little sniffs and walks out. That was so good.
I also love, and we haven't talked about them that much, but like the Justin Long and his whole gaggle of Galaxy Quest fans. It's just such a sweet and endearing part of this movie. And I got a little, I got a little nostalgic watching a teenage Justin Long. That's how old I am. Where I was just like, oh, Justin Long, he's been in our lives for so long. No pun intended. And yeah, and he's so good. He's so heartfelt and sincere. And it's a really great arc. You're right, Riv. They got a better arc than Sigourney did.
Crazy.
I mean, him and his gaggle of friends, like, they are the true heroes of the film, I think. Like, and that's why Patrick Stewart pointed that out in that quote I read earlier. Like, they do save the day. And it was so funny that there's a couple really good lines from his scenes, but like when Jason first gets him on the recorder and or on the communicator, and Justin's like, look, man, I'm not some idiot. Like, I know it's all fake and just a show. And he's like, no, it's all real. He's like, oh, I knew it. And it's like, oh man, what a good fan moment where he's just like, he's built up this whole universe in his head that, and I've been there too. Like, I would love if the Star Trek universe was real. Are you kidding me? That sounds great. Like, yeah, they were great. I mean, and they really were, like, because of their passion and the deep dive that, like, they had, like, technical manuals and layouts and, like, also some good technology set up to be doing video calls in 1999. Like, they had some pretty good computers going on there in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you were that age in 99 and you really wanted to, like, invest in your setup, yeah, that was starting to be a thing for sure.
Video calls in 99?
Yeah, there were webcams. There were webcams in 99.
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a little external cam that you'd stick on the top of your computer. I remember that was a big era for, and people still do it, but like building their own PC rigs, you know, because this is also before Mac's resurgence. So like you could just like make a PC from just, I don't know how PCs work, but you could basically just like build like a super powerful PC by just like spending a lot of money and adding all these components together. I remember like I had, there was like one older kid who had done that, and we would like go over to his place and be like, his computer is so fucking cool, dude. You gotta check out this kid's computer.
Oh my God. Yeah. But yeah, I did want to mention this one anecdote about when I saw this movie, because I saw this movie in theaters when it came out. And my mom took my brothers and I, along with, we had another family that we were friends with, the Kushkas, shout out to the Kushkas. And we went and we had some, like, you know, they had some kids that were our age too. But I remember, like, my one memory of this movie in the theaters was that scene at the end where they're coming in to land, right? And Justin Long is like running out with all the Roman candles. And, you know, he's like, just like going off to his mom, like, they're coming in too hot for the atmosphere. They came through the black hole and we have to use Roman candles for signaling. And then his mom just like looks at the dad and goes, well, at least he's outside. And I remember like my mom and Kelly, her friend, they looked at each other and just like, that was the loudest they had laughed that entire movie. Cause I guess it just like hit home for them. Like, you know, they had all these, you know, young kids around.
Mom
like,
humor.
Yeah, at least he's outside.
That was a great moment. That's really sweet. All right, should we give this film some awards?
I think it is time for the awards. Yes, let's do it.
Well, you know these well, John, but we're gonna tell them to you like you don't.
Yeah, and for possibly any audience members who maybe this is their first episode. So we have 3 awards we give every movie. Our first award is the Best Politics Award. This goes to the character with the best politics in the movie.
I was having a hard time figuring this out because like I said, I was really struggling to figure out the politics of these characters, but I'm leaning towards the original, the aliens.
Malthazar.
Yeah, the Thermians, Mathazar. Yeah.
It was Mathazar.
That was going to be my gut instinct. Yeah, I mean, he's doing everything possible to save his people.
You know where it gets hard is it just becomes tricky when you're like, you invited. Again, because we don't know what exactly was happening on the show, it's hard to decipher, like, why did you think that was going to be a good leader? Mm-hmm. You know, because we don't know what happens on Galaxy Quest. So that's just where I'm like, because based on who they bring, the Tim Allen character, what's his name?
Jason Nesbitt.
Jason. Like, Jason's not, that's a bad political move to bring that man.
I would say if you think about taking this from the politics of Star Trek, and if they were assuming Galaxy Quest was a 1-to-1.
If we're going to assume that.
Yeah. Then Commander Taggart would have come off very differently than who Jason Nesbitt actually is. Like, you know, Mathazar would have seen this like the term a lot of people use is like, this is competency porn, right? These are just like these people that are so smart and good at what they do. And they always, you know, try and make the right decisions. And they're out there exploring the galaxy. And like, you know, conceivably Mathazar saw Galaxy Quest where like every week they beam down to another planet and like help out the people who live there. Right. Or beat the bad guy.
That's a big flaw to me of this movie, that it's so dependent on us having this assumed knowledge.
That's true. Yeah.
Because otherwise, without it, you're like, what the fuck are they thinking?
You brought Tim Allen to your spaceship? Yeah.
If we're going to go with that, then
you know who we voted for?
Yeah.
Well, because in a lot of ways, and I'll wait for worst politics. But so, yeah, I would say then given the assumption that that we know the politics of Galaxy Quest and we're just assuming it's Star Trek, that's my choice, I suppose.
There's also an innocence to Mathazar, I think, that they point out in the scene where he's being tortured by Saris and he makes Jason explain to him what it is. And the line he uses is like, explain to him as if you would a child. And like, I think you guys have talked about this on the pod before. Like, it's kind of hard to say a kid has bad politics, and like, he is just this like innocent kid, basically, who, I don't know, that to me stood out. Like, he is just like, he wants the best thing for his people. He is doing what is in his power, to try and save them. Was Jason Nesbitt the right choice? Probably not. But, it's the choice he made the best choice with the information he had, which was looking at Galaxy Quest as like a historical record.
Yeah.
He's the best option for sure.
It's got to go to Mathazar, yeah.
Worst politics goes to the character with the worst politics in the movie.
Okay, so this is like a toss-up between Jason Nesbitt and Saris.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. One doing genocide intentionally, the other one unintentionally because he was hungover and didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to Jason.
I kind of want to lean towards Jason as well, yeah.
Because through this lens and watching it in this way at this time, like, Jason is he is a Trump figure. Like, in so many ways, like, that was Trump's journey. Like, I'm doing this not because I want to, like, the beginning of his campaign in 2016, that like, that like the stories, the lore of hearing like he wasn't even intending or desiring to be president, hiring people to be like those early on, like what a propaganda campaign, what its own TV show that it was, like hiring people to be at the rallies, and then what it kind of became is a little bit like Jason's trajectory of like, I'll show up drunk. Okay, whatever. Like, I'll do this because I want a little bit more. I mean, I just want more. And then becomes a leader and not a great one, as we've discussed.
And then and then he makes the choice once he learns that this is in fact all real. He doubles down and he's like, oh, not only can I do this, am I capable of manning this fucking spaceship? I'm going to bring all of like my oldest friends with me and put their lives in jeopardy as well.
And they're like, they get there and they're like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
immediately, they're just like, how you fucking brought us here? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, it's Saris. I mean, Saris is like objectively bad, but it's not really interesting. He's just like a bad alien. So yeah, Rivka, I'm definitely with you. It's got to be Jason Nesbitt. He's just like, and he's also a sleaze. Like, you see him at the convention, like he's trying to hit on these young girls too, and he's just like, he's just like grimy, and
he's very Trump coded.
We get no politics from Saris other than just like, I want to destroy the Thermians. Like, there's nothing else. So just based on like the actual character of Jason Nesbitt that we watched throughout this movie, he's fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
Okay. And our last award, Better Supporting Character, goes to the supporting character that this movie should actually be about.
I mean, I feel like mine was clearly Sigourney Weaver's character. We kind of talked about it, like,
yeah,
fully go there, make her the hero.
Yeah. I think like the most obvious choice is the Sam Rockwell character, but I actually don't think that's a good one because like the whole point of his character is that he is like an extra, like when when they crash land and he comes out and they're like another shipmate. Like,
he could have like a TV show. He could totally be like Extras, the TV show.
Well, there could be like a gritty story of like him auditioning for all these small roles and he finally is like excited that he gets to be on Galaxy Quest and then he gets killed off in episode 81. Like, yeah, there could be something there.
And everything that leads up to him getting to like the Galaxy Quest sort of Comic-Con-esque place. Like, but you're right, it's dark. It's like him smoking cigarettes in a car. It's like super indie. He's like probably like living in a hotel room, but then shows up like everything's fine. I'm shiny and I'm great. But he's like moved worlds to just be there.
Yeah, that could be something there. I think the one I actually want to see the most though is I want the movie with Brandon, Justin Long's character, and his friends. Like, I want to see, because they are the true heroes of the movie. Like, now in this universe, they are now aware of like extraterrestrials and all this crazy technology that to them was just recently a fiction. Like, what happens to them? Does
yeah.
Justin Long go off to like, maybe he's an engineer at NASA, or one of his friends is like writing on the new Galaxy Quest series, and there's like a new alien threat and they have to come together and save the day again. I thought that would be kind of fun to see too.
One of them definitely becomes like a founder of Uber or something, you know, like goes to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And they're just all like, yo, fuck Ricky. That dude lost the thread. He sucks now.
Yeah. There's some good options.
I would also watch, because they start explaining it in the limo when they're taking him up for the first time, like the history of the Thermians and Saris's race of aliens. Like, give me more of that. Like, the Thermians seem so sweet and naive, as we've talked about. They don't understand what lies are. So, like, maybe that's just like a really sad and depressing story. But I was fascinated by that and how this conflict came to be.
The lies piece is so true. Yeah. Every time I teach improv to like, that's always my line in. I'm like, oh, you think you've never improvised before? Is anyone here ever tell the lie?
Ooh, yeah.
Nice.
And they'll raise their hand. I'll be like, you, my friend, actor. My best
Thespian.
work was like, trying like at the infirmary in school. Like, my best work for fucking sure. Faking sick. So good.
Oh, yeah. When the stakes are real.
When the stakes are real, I gotta get the fuck out of this school. I'm trying to be broken free. Yeah.
If I nail this audition, I get to go home. This is the highest the stakes have ever been. I get to go home and watch TV. John, thanks so much, man. Thank you for being a part of this show. I know Riv and I have both spoken about it, you know, on our, just like how grateful we are that you're here. And, you know, we like, you're a sweetheart, and you've learned so much so quickly. And we are truly like eternally grateful, because it has really made us want to be doing this more and longer. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was so fun. It's been such a fun experience to be part of this show for the last couple months. And I can't wait to see where we go. I mean, I feel like we got some big things on the horizon. So it's been awesome. I really appreciate it. And this was fun. Galaxy Quest rules. Everyone should go watch it if you haven't.
Everyone should. But lastly, as you know, we got one more thing for you. What's your anti-capitalist practice? So at the end of every episode, we ask our guests, where's something where you get to practice your anti-capitalist values in your everyday life? And that could be anything from like, you know, a daily routine or practice you engage in, or an organization you work with. So John, what is that for you?
One that's really new is I just recently got plugged in with the mutual aid group here in Boise. Shout out to Boise Kitchen Collective. And I've been making
amazing.
Yeah, I've been making meals a couple times a month for them when I'm able to sign up. Mutual aid has been really fun to get involved in. And I don't know, the horrors are many and large, and there's so many problems going on right now that like I can't fix on my own. But if there's someone in my neighborhood that's hungry, I'm pretty dang good at making like a burrito, so I can do that. And that's been really fun. But I think the one that I've been practicing for the longest time is just in general, like trying to be less reliant on convenience and consumption. I moved to Boise in November, and I furnished almost my entire place on Facebook Marketplace, which was really great. Sure, we can have another conversation about using a meta platform for that, but just how dare I?
Not good enough, John.
Not good enough. No, but I mean, that's just the world we live in. But no, seriously, like, and that was a big thing that I learned from the Jason Hickel book, Less is More, is like, we just make too much shit that we don't need. And they're like, especially like furniture too, like, there is so much good, high quality furniture out there that people are trying to get rid of for very cheap. Like I bought, all my furniture, my skis that I used this year, I didn't buy those new, those were off Facebook Marketplace. Like you just don't really need to buy new shit that much. And the less you can do it, the better it is, because like this, overconsumption is really at the core of, like what's driving our ecological breakdown. I'm always thinking in terms of like the climate crisis when I think about these things, but yeah, just trying to buy less shit, fix stuff too. Like my dog, I love him very much, but he knocked over one of my garden gnomes on my porch the other day. And it was a really fantastic Georgia football garden gnome. I'm a big Georgia football fan, and I just glued it back together, and it's good as new. It's like, you don't always have to go buy new shit. Sometimes you can just fix it. And
now it has a story.
It has the story. Yeah. So yeah,
and holds a story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can hold a little beautiful water now too, because there's a hole in the top of it. But Yeah, just like trying to reduce our dependency on like the convenience and the consumption that we have come to just like really kind of take for granted. And it's not, and when you let go of that kind of stuff too, like you realize like, oh, I don't actually need to order something off Amazon every time I need something. Like I can go to a store in my neighborhood and walk in there and like talk to somebody. And it just, you realize how little it actually does matter, this like convenience that we've built so much of our life around. And so just try and not buy new stuff. That's probably the most anti-capitalist thing I do on a regular basis.
That's a good one.
It's a great one. Yeah.
John, thank you again. Thank you for picking this movie, and thanks for being a part of this little family.
John, do you want people to find you on the internet? Do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram, John MP18. I know the Movies vs. Capitalism feed sometimes when I share stuff, they'll repost it. And then I'm on Blue Sky too at Mike-Cyclops. I think it's a Detroiters reference from Tim Robinson. But we're gonna get MVC on Blue Sky soon too. I quit Twitter completely after I was like, I don't need to be on the Nazi run website. No shame if like anyone is still there, because I know a lot of people have to be for work and stuff. So, but I cut it out and I've been enjoying Blue Sky and stuff. So we'll get MVC fired up over there. But yeah, come. Anyone is welcome to find me, follow me. And if you're a leftist in Idaho, there's not a lot of us, but I know there's some of us. So, hit me up. It'd be fun to connect. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks, John.
To get ourselves a treat.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and now YouTube. And if you want to support the show and get access to our bonus episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon. That link is in the episode description in your podcast player or at mvcpod.com.
Another reminder, we donate our ad space, so if you're part of a leftist or progressive organization and you would like to run an ad on this program, please email us at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
For next week, we're actually not going to be covering a movie. We are instead going to be covering a TV show, and not one, but two of them. We're going to be talking about the most recent seasons of Severance and The White Lotus, so make sure you finish those up if you haven't yet.
That's right, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, let's just play that back one more time.